G'day, Mark. So if I sell the property to my family trust on a minimum price, the remaining balance of the loan, what is your opinion? Now, I can't give you specific advice on this because I don't know your personal situation. However, I can give you some insights that hopefully will lead you to making the right decision. I do urge you to go seek advice because it's really important that you get these things right because it can be very costly and there can be some severe consequences if you get them wrong. So first and foremost, it's really important that these types of transactions are done on what's referred to as an arm's length basis. That essentially means that what would somebody reasonably do in a situation with an independent third party? That you were selling this particular property to another individual that you had no relationship or association with. Would the amount that you're being charged or that you're charging for that particular transaction be what is determined as a fair and reasonable value? And on the basis of your comment here, an independent person would likely say no, because the value of the property and the comparables of that property, if it was sold on the open market, would determine a significantly higher valuation. Now, you might be wondering, well, who's going to find out? The ATO has some very, very sophisticated technologies, okay? One, they have direct feeds from the Land Titles Office. They know that you are the controlling person of the family trust by way of your directorships of the trustee company. And they have the ability to then flag that as a non-arm's length transaction. They have direct feeds from RP data to be able to determine what is the fair market value or what is the appraised value by way of those systems. And then they can then flag you through their AI systems of what is the discrepancy between the value of the transaction and in turn the market value of that business. And if there is a discrepancy, then there are a number of penalties that can apply. First and foremost, you can have a penalty applied for the unpaid stamp duty and the capital gains tax associated with the discrepancy between the two values. Secondly, you could be deemed to having committed tax fraud and tax evasion, and there could be civil and criminal penalties applied to you, which could come by way of fines, or potentially even possible jail time. And from my perspective, it doesn't really seem worth it, right? The idea is that we're trying to do things, we want to do them in good faith, we want to follow the law, we want to be law-abiding citizens, and we want to utilize every available strategy that we have at our disposal that is legal to be able to leverage. However, we don't want to go and do wrong stuff because let's say that in some particular situation, you did get away with it. There is always going to be this thought in the back of your head of, well, what happens if I eventually get caught one day? And how am I going to be able to come up with the money to be able to pay for all of those penalties? And then worst case scenario, what's the worst that could happen in all of these scenarios? And what is the maximum penalty that could be applied to me? And what are the implications associated with that? And for me, it's just not worth it, okay? So what should you do instead? Well, you need to weigh up the pros and cons associated with the current ownership structure, which I suspect is in your own name. The implications of that being that you maybe not have the flexibility around distributing income, you must take it all yourself, let's assume you own it all. What are the additional implications associated with the distribution of future capital gains tax in the event that that asset is sold? And then you need to compare that to alternative structures, whether it be a family trust, a company, or superannuation, or whatever it might be. And then say, okay, well, what are the potential benefits of the ability to flexibility around distributing income and capital gains? Are there any other potential benefits that I receive as a result of setting up that structure and making that transition? And what are the associated costs of making that transition? And how long is it going to take me based on the benefits to recoup those costs and for me to get into a net better position? This is how we evaluate this in a professional situation, and the only time that we look to go ahead with these kinds of restructures is if there is a net benefit that aligns with the client's objectives and that the payoff period is fair and reasonable. Because like you might say, okay, well, if I do this restructure, I do it properly, I do it at arm's length, then I've got to come up with all of these costs, I'm going to have to pay all of this tax, and maybe it takes me 3 or 5 years to recoup the savings of the new structure in this particular scenario. For some people, they might be happy with that. For others, they may not be. The important thing is that don't break the law. And if you are going to break the law, don't admit it on TikTok. Probably not a great idea.